Good morning, guys. It's Hump Day, Wednesday, September 20th, 2017. This is the Daily Mix TV. So, according to CNBC, it looks like T-Mobile and Sprint are in active merger talks again. This would result in the Sprint T-Mobile company taking the number 2 spot behind AT&T in the highly competitive business. A stock-for-stock deal is basically what's being discussed here. Deutsche Telekom, the parent of T-Mobile, would emerge as the majority owner over Sprint's owner, SoftBank, who would basically take a secondary position. Now, acquisition and merger talks for the mobile operators have been a really popular point of conversation in the industry for about 3 years. Remember, back in 2014, Sprint originally wanted to acquire T-Mobile, but later withdrew its bid over regulatory concerns. Now, that's a hurdle they're definitely going to face again. Why? You already have enough big players in the mix to keep pricing fair, which is usually where the government gets involved and puts a stop to that. However, the secondary market, otherwise known as burner phones or month-to-month phones or temp phones, those kinds of things, like Track Phone is one of them, they're primarily owned by the big boys. So what does that mean? So AT&T has a sub-brand, so does T-Mobile, so does Sprint, I believe Verizon does as well. The issue becomes, okay, forgetting the totality of subscribers that will make up the new company, meaning all of T-Mobile and all of Sprint subbies, what happens to those secondary phone companies that are owned by these guys? The issue is that it is all about the data. How much influence does one company have over the American population in terms of their subscriber data? Also, from a pricing perspective, is this actually fair to T-Mobile and Sprint's customers from a contractual point of view? And what does that do in the competitive set against AT&T and Verizon? What does it do to their customers? So that's what regulatory concerns really are with respect to the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communications Commission. Now, this deal makes all the sense in the world from both a business and a marketing point of view. So think about this. You have two competitors that are desperate to take share from the top two dominant players in the field, that being AT&T and Verizon. Now, if they're able to combine their efforts, their marketing budgets, and their subscriber data, that means they are really poised for growth. Now, subscriber data is a very interesting thing. You've got privacy concerns, which are obvious. But every single time you use this, what ends up happening is the wireless carrier is tracking your position. They're looking at your behavior, meaning, are you visiting websites? Are you using apps? Are you making a phone call? Are you sending a text message? If you're an iPhone user, an iMessage, and so on. They actually take that data and repurpose it, or they resell it. So your privacy isn't being infringed, meaning the content, the messaging, all of those things is still yours. They don't touch that unless you've been hacked. But what they do is they take the actual behavioral data and resell that. And that's big business right now. Now, this deal would basically turn the new combined company into a serious powerhouse. And if I were AT&T, I would be very concerned about that. According to our friends over at Chain Store Age, Kohl's is extending its collaboration with Amazon in a way that is almost sure to drive increased traffic to its stores. This announcement would also actually help the online giant solve a serious problem they've been having. The department store retailer is going to begin accepting Amazon returns at 82 doors in LA and Chicago. The chain, now this is the coolest part, the chain will not only ship eligible items back to an Amazon fulfillment center for free, they'll also pack up the goods for you. You see, the problem for Amazon has always been in the return process. It's a little clunky. It's gotten a lot better over the years, don't get me wrong. And with Amazon lockers and other retail programs, they've made it a little easier to return, but not super convenient. If memory serves me correctly, they do have a proprietary relationship with UPS, which makes it a little less expensive, a little easier to do, but again, it's still not that convenient. For this program, they're adding in a lot of layers to make it very convenient for the customer. As an example, there's going to be dedicated parking spots at these 82 locations near the store entrances for customers that are specifically making Amazon returns. So it is really a well thought out and planned program. All in, it's going to debut next month. The chief administrative officer for Kohl's, his name is Richard Shep. He gave a quote to Chain Store Age. This is a great example of how Kohl's and Amazon are leveraging each other's strengths. The power of Kohl's store portfolio and omni-channel capabilities combined with the power of Amazon's reach and loyal customer base. You know what? He's absolutely right. It really does show that Kohl's knows how to play nicely in the sandbox, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, remember, Amazon and Kohl's have been getting very cozy lately. Earlier this month, Kohl's announced that they plan to add a store within a store concept for the Amazon Smart Home experience in 10 of their locations. Ironically, in those two same test markets, LA and Chicago. That starts next month as well. So the 10 stores with the in-store shops will also have Amazon returns integrated into the overall Amazon experience. Now, that's going to be prominently located right at the front of the store. So Kohl's is really putting a lot into this deal. Now, here's the real side of this. The move is absolutely brilliant by Kohl's. As I said, it shows they play nicely in the sandbox. It'll also give them some time to shrink expenses, which they announced they were doing in August. They're trying to basically pare down their door count and footprint to accommodate increased costs and changing consumer behavior patterns. And they did specifically cite that. So clearly Kohl's is thinking this through. They're thinking the long view. They're paying attention to their business. They're paying attention to the wants, needs, and desires of their customers. Not a lot of retailers are doing that right now. A lot of retailers are playing the knee-jerk game, and it's starting to really affect their bottom lines in a way that's very dire, but it's totally avoidable. Programming like this is spot on. Now, saddling up with Amazon allows the door to open for Kohl's to a lot of co-branded opportunities with the e-commerce giant. As an example, can you imagine if Kohl's ends up being the next acquisition by Amazon to service their growth that they've had with Prime Service and more? I know I can. Speaking of Amazon, these guys are just on an absolute rock star roll this year. The Financial Times reported last night that the e-commerce behemoth is working on its first wearable device, and it's a pair of smart glasses. The device, designed like a regular pair of glasses, will allow Alexa, that's Amazon's digital assistant, to basically be summoned at any time, anywhere. And people who were familiar with the plan said that this has been the strategy for a little while. There would be a bone conduction audio system built into the device to allow the wearer to hear Alexa without actually inserting headphones into their ears. And it's pretty similar to these babies. Remember Google Glass? I still use them, and I love them. So for me, this is a really interesting move for Amazon. Given the lukewarm reception that Google Glass had, it's unusual for Amazon to take a risk like this. Now, I would expect Apple to come up with something like this, given their approach to product development and so on. So they take existing things that exist in the market and make it 1,000% better. Remember, it just works. It's important to note that earlier this year, though, Alphabet, Google, reintroduced its Google Glass after discontinuing its production last year. So in terms of what's going on, earlier this month, you had Apple announce the Apple Watch 3. So wearables are still very much at the front of mind in technology right now. What's going to happen in terms of Glass or Google Glass is still unknown, because when they did the test of the original rollout a few years ago, it was in fact a test, and a lot of it was designed to drive noise about the company and their innovation process. When you think about Amazon and the innovations that they've been making, this move could actually be a game changer for them, because if they are actually able to perfect the glass side of this, the smart glass side of this, it would basically showcase Amazon as the number one player in innovation. Google failed, remember that, in terms of glass. And as I said, I still use it and I love it, but it's still not a viable product for mass consumption. Whereas if Amazon's able to make that work, changes the game completely. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the CEO of Hill Story Marketing. I'm also the editor-in-chief of The Daily Mix TV. We would love to hear from you, so please email us at thedailymixtv@gmail.com. Have a great hump day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.